on a Wednesday evening. People were coming home from work, putting dinner on the table the way you did tonight. And at 4 minutes past 6, off the coast of a state called Yaracuy, the earth moved. A magnitude 7.2, strong enough on its own to bring walls down. And then, 40 seconds later, before the first one had even finished, the ground hit them again, a 7.5. 2 blows, less than a minute apart, in a country that had not felt anything like it in over 100 years. In Caracas, buildings folded in on themselves with people still inside them. Whole high-rises in the east of the city came down into the street. On the coast, in La Guaira, an entire stretch of it was called a disaster zone before anyone could even count. By the time I am saying this to you, the dead are already past 160, and close to 1,000 are hurt. And the number is only the number we have so far. There were aftershocks all night, one after another, like the ground could not stop. And out past the coast, a warning went up across the water, all the way to Puerto Rico, to the Virgin Islands, telling people the sea itself might rise. Now the reports will tell you why. They'll point you to a fault line that runs along the northern coast, to the plates grinding past each other miles under the surface. And that is true. I am not going to argue with the science. The science is real, but I have been watching these things for a long time now. And there comes a moment, maybe you have already reached it, where the explanation stops being enough, where you look at how many of these there have been, and how close together, and something in you goes quiet and says, this is not just the ground settling. This is the ground saying something. Because there is a verse I have not been able to stop hearing this week. Paul wrote it almost 2,000 years ago. And he wrote it like a man who already knew what we would be living through. He said the whole creation has been groaning. Groaning, he said, as in the pains of childbirth, right up until now, not dying, laboring, straining towards something it is about to bring forth. And I want you to hear how the earth spoke in Venezuela, because it spoke in the exact language Paul used. 2 shocks, 40 seconds apart, the way a contraction comes, and then the next one comes harder and closer. That is not me forcing a meaning onto it. That is the meaning the ground itself chose. Before I take you any further, I want to ask you something, and I am asking it seriously, not as a formality. If you have had that same feeling lately, that the world is moving faster than anyone is willing to admit, leave me one word below. Watching. Just that one word. I read them, and I am keeping count of how many of us are seeing the same thing at the same time. And if you have not already, subscribe before you go further, because what I am about to show you does not end with this video. The signs are arriving in a sequence now, and I intend to follow every one of them with you. So let me start where it started, with the ground. Here is what most people will never sit with long enough to notice. Venezuela was not first, and it was not alone. The earth has been moving everywhere this year, in places that almost never reach your feed. A 7.5 is not a tremor. It is the strongest thing that nation has felt in more than a century, landing on top of months where the map of the world keeps lighting up. Fault lines that had been silent for a generation waking up. Cities you have never heard of suddenly counting their dead. We have been trained to file each one separately. One quake here, a flood there, a fire somewhere else. And we scroll on, the mind protects itself that way. But Scripture never told us to read the signs one at a time. It told us to read them as a pattern. Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives, And his own disciples asked him the exact question you and I are asking right now. What will be the sign? And he did not give them one event. He gave them a list. Nation rising against nation, earthquakes in various places, famines. And then he said something I think we read far too fast. He said, "These are the beginning of birth pains." The beginning, not the end. The beginning of the labor. If you have ever been in the room when a child is born, you know what that word does. The pains do not come once. They come closer together, and they come harder, and there is no negotiating with them. The ground in Yarakui was not having an accident. By the language Christ himself chose, it was having a contraction, and I will be honest with you, because I will not lie to you to keep you watching. The ground shaking is the part we can feel. It is the part that makes the news, but it has never been the part that should frighten us most. A building can be rebuilt, a city can be cleared and poured again. What I need you to understand before I show you the rest is that the trembling of the earth was only the first thing. It was the alarm going off. The thing the alarm is warning us about has not even arrived yet. Because while the people of Caracas were running into the streets, looking down at the ground that had betrayed them, almost nobody was looking up. And up is where the next sign was already waiting. Here is what I have learned. When the earth gives a sign, look up. Every single time. Because the heavens are always speaking in the same moment, and we are almost never watching them. Jesus told us exactly where to look. He said there would be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. He put the sky first, before the nations, before the sea, before the fear. The sky. And the prophet Joel said it with even more weight, centuries before Christ. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood, before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes. The thing that gives us light, going dark. We are living in a stretch of years where that sentence is no longer poetry. The sun has been restless, not quiet, the way it spends most of a human lifetime. Restless, throwing out flares, hurling storms of energy across 90 million miles of empty space straight at this planet. And those storms are not just beautiful lights in the northern sky. They reach into the things we have built our whole lives on top of. The satellites we trust to tell us where we are. The power grids that keep the lights on in your house tonight. And here is something I want you to hold next to Venezuela. The night the ground broke, the lights went out too. Not just from the rubble. The whole country's connection to the world dropped. The power, the signals, the lines that carry information. Because the thing we built our civilization on is more fragile than we let ourselves believe. We armored ourselves against the ground, and we left the heavens completely undefended. We never even thought to look. And the eclipses. I want to be careful here, because the world wants to make this silly, and it is not silly. An eclipse is just orbital mechanics, they will tell you. The moon passes in front of the sun. Predictable, calculable. We know the day and the hour, down to the minute. And that is exactly the point everyone misses. God is not surprised by an eclipse. God set the clockwork. He hung the sun and the moon in the first chapter of Genesis and called them. This is his word, not mine. He called them signs, for seasons and for days and for years. They were never only lights. From the beginning, they were a message. And a message does not stop being a message just because you can predict when it will speak. So when the light dims over a world that has already forgotten how to look up, even for a few minutes, on a schedule written before the foundation of the earth. I do not hear a coincidence. I hear a sentence being spoken slowly enough that we have no excuse for missing it. The ground broke in Venezuela, and the sky has been clearing its throat for years. And still, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking this is a lot, and it is heavy. And where is the hope in any of it? I want to stop right here and answer that. Because if I leave you only with the shaking and the darkening, I have failed you. So stay with me, because there is something underneath all of this that does not move. I need to say this plainly, and then I will go on. Everything I have shown you so far moves. The ground moves. The sea moves. The sun itself is unsteady. The whole creation, Paul said, is groaning. And if your hope is built on any of it, on the economy holding, on the map staying still, on tomorrow looking like yesterday, then yes, you should be afraid. Because all of it is shaking, and none of it was ever meant to hold your weight. But the men who wrote these warnings did not write them from a place of panic. Read them again. David, with armies hunting him, wrote that the Lord was his rock and his fortress, the one high place that does not crack when the ground does. The same Jesus who told us the sun would go dark told us, in the same breath, not to let our hearts be troubled. Those two things sit side by side on purpose. The darkness is real, and the steadiness is more real. So I am not showing you these signs to leave you trembling in the dark. I am showing them to you so that you will move, while there is still room to move, onto the one thing the earthquake cannot reach. The labor of creation is terrifying if you think the world is just falling apart at random. It changes completely the moment you understand that something is being born, and that the one bringing it forth already told you his name, and already told you to keep your eyes up and your heart unafraid. That is the difference between the two kinds of people watching all of this happen, and that difference is the next thing I have to show you, because it is getting sharper every single day. Here is something I have come to believe, watching all of this for years. These signs are not only warnings, they are also a sorting. Every time the earth breaks open or the sky goes strange, the world splits a little further into two kinds of people, and the line between them gets cleaner. On one side are the ones who feel something stirring, who cannot shake the sense that the events are connected, that this is leading somewhere. And on the other side are the ones who have stopped being able to see it at all. Not because they are stupid. Some of the people who can no longer see are the smartest people I know. They have simply trained their eyes downward for so long that the heavens have gone invisible to them. Solomon wrote one line about this that has never let me go. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Not where there is no money, not where there is no army. Where there is no vision, no ability to see past the surface of the day, that is where a people quietly dies without even knowing it is happening. And the people of Yarakue did not get a warning the night before. The shaking was the warning. There were 40 seconds between the first sign and the second, and then there was no more time at all. That is how it works now. The sign and the reckoning arrive almost on top of each other. So the question is not whether you will be ready when the great day comes. The question is whether you are awake right now, today, while the signs are still being given one at a time, gently enough that you can still respond to them. Jesus said it as simply as it can be said. Keep watch, because you do not know the day your Lord will come. Not be anxious, not be paralyzed. Awake. There is a difference, and the difference is everything. Because the earth has spoken, the heavens have spoken, and now I have to take you to the third place the prophets told us to watch. And this is the one that should make the hair stand up on your arms. Because for once, it is not somewhere across the world from where the ground broke. It is the same country. Jesus did not stop at the sun and the moon. Read his words again, slowly, because we are about to watch them land on a single map. There will be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And on the earth, distress of nations. In perplexity, confused and afraid because of the roaring and the tossing of the sea, the earth, the heavens, and then the nations, in distress and perplexity. He gave us all three. Now look at where Venezuela already was, before the ground ever moved. This was not a country at peace that an earthquake interrupted. This was a nation already on its knees, an economy that had been gutted by years of collapse, a government in the middle of being torn out by the roots. Its own president seized earlier this year, the country handed to an interim leader, the whole nation holding its breath over who is even in charge. Distress of nations, in perplexity. That phrase was written for a moment exactly like this one. A people who do not know what tomorrow's government even is. And then, on top of that, the ground itself gives way, and the sea answers. That warning racing out across the water toward the islands. The roaring and the tossing of the sea, in the same breath Jesus used. And here is the part I cannot get past. When it happened, the nations moved toward it. Within hours, the most powerful country on earth was promising help. Teams from a dozen nations turning toward one collapsing place at once. We are watching, in real time, the gathering of the nations toward a single point of distress. For 2,000 years, that sounded like a riddle. It does not sound like a riddle this week. This week, it sounds like a headline. Jesus told us not to be alarmed when we heard of wars and rumors of wars, of nations in trouble. He said such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Read that carefully. He did not say it would not happen. He said, when it happens, do not lose your head. Recognize it. It is a marker on the road, not the destination, and the marker has been planted on a single map this week. The earth breaking, the heavens restless, a nation in collapse, the sea rising, all of it stacked on top of one another. In one place, in 1 week. I have read these prophecies my whole life. I have never once seen all four lit up on the same square of the map until now. So let me bring you back to that Wednesday evening. A man is sitting down to dinner like any other night, and in 11 seconds, the ground takes everything he assumed was solid and proves it was never solid at all. He had no warning the hour before. There was no announcement. The shaking was the announcement, and by the time he understood it, it was already over. That is the whole thing I have been trying to show you. We keep waiting for a sign so loud and so undeniable that no one could possibly miss it. And we keep walking straight past the ones we are already being given because we would rather have an explanation than a meaning. The earth has spoken to us. The sky has spoken to us. A nation is speaking right now in the exact words the prophets wrote down. The signs are not coming. The signs are here. And they are arriving closer together, exactly the way labor pains do. 40 seconds apart and getting shorter. I am not going to tell you what to do with that. You are a grown person and you can feel the weight of it without me spelling it out. But I will tell you what I refuse to do. I refuse to stand in the street looking down at the ground when everything in the book I have read my whole life is telling me to look up. The man in Caracas did not get to choose his moment. We still do. The space between the sign and the reckoning is still open. It is open today. I do not know that it stays open. The whole creation is groaning, Paul said, straining in labor. And labor only ends one of two ways: in something being born, or in everything being lost. Which one it is for you was never going to be decided by the earthquake. It was always going to be decided by whether you were watching. If you made it to the end of this with me, then you already feel it. And you do not need me to convince you of anything. So here is what I will ask instead. Tell me below what you are seeing where you are. The signs are not just on the news. They are in your own life, your own city, your own week. Write it down. Let the rest of us read it, so we know we are not watching alone. And subscribe and stay close, because I told you at the start, this does not end here. I am going to keep following every one of these. The earth, the heavens, the nations. One sign at a time, as they come. The next one is already on its way. I would rather you heard about it from someone who is looking up. I will see you in the next one. Keep watch.